This guy said this is one of the biggest gaps between the best and second best player we've ever seen, talking about A'ja Wilson in the WNBA. And I'm confused because I'm seeing fans bring up Caitlin Clark. Like, don't get me wrong, she's really good, but she's barely the best guard in the league, let alone the best player in the league.
All the MVP candidates on points generated per game, points scored, points generated, and by assists. Now, as you guys can see here, Caitlin Clark got hurt at the beginning of this season, but she's doing this with only 31 games. So when we sit up here and say Caitlin Clark is not the greatest, at least right now, you're lying to yourself because she clearly is. The numbers don't lie.
Caitlin Clark is also first in the WNBA in total points created. She is first in the WNBA in points per game created. She is first in points per minute when she is on the court. Leads the league in assists per game, and she is also third overall in scoring this.
A'ja Wilson's reign at the top of the WNBA MVP conversation. It just got flipped on its head, and the reason is an absolute shockwave nobody saw coming. Or rather, nobody asterisk wanted asterisk to see coming. For most of this season, her name has been etched in permanent marker at the very top, deep into trophy season, acting like that throne was hers for life. No questions asked, no real challengers in sight. But something just shifted, and it didn't shift quietly. The entire league's narrative around its most valuable player is now being rewritten in real time. And the player forcing that rewrite is someone many initially tried to dismiss.
Wilson, Olivia Miles,
Kelsey Mitchell.
Can I get there?
Oh my God.
Kelsey Mitchell, Paige Beckers.
You hear in that clip, Aaliyah Boston jumps in as Candace is speaking and says, make sure that you say Kelsey Mitchell. Now, who Aaliyah Boston didn't mention, who Candace didn't mention, was Caitlin Clark. And this has obviously...
This isn't about some rookie having a good run. It's about a phenomenon that went from barely cracking a top 5 mention to now sitting squarely in the #1 conversation for the league's most prestigious individual award. And get this, she did it without a single press tour, without begging for respect, without a single soundbite trying to sway public opinion. She just played basketball. And the numbers, the cold, hard, undeniable numbers, are now doing all the talking for her, screaming a truth that the rest of the league, and perhaps even some of her peers, are struggling to accept.
Caitlin Clark just made WNBA history. 45 points, 10 assists, and the Indiana Fever beat the Seattle Storm. And this wasn't just a career night, it was record-breaking night. First player in WNBA history to record 40-plus points and 10-plus assists in the same game. Set a new Indiana Fever franchise record with 45 points. Added another historic milestone to a career that's already rewriting the record books. And she did it all while still on a minute restriction. When Caitlin Clark is healthy, she changes everything. The pace, the spacing, the energy, and nights like this remind everyone why she is one of the biggest stars the game has ever seen.
Remember back in July? The WNBA players themselves voted on the league's best guards. And in a move that now looks absolutely absurd in hindsight, Caitlin Clark landed at number 11. 11th. Think about that for a second. She was ranked behind names she was consistently outscoring and outplaying on a weekly basis, leading the entire league in categories like points and assists. At that point, she was 4th in scoring and 2nd in assists. Yet somehow, her own peers slotted her in as the 11th best guard. It was a slight so brazen, so obviously rooted in something other than on-court production, that it felt less like an informed opinion and more like a collective statement.
Clark, on a vote by WNBA players, was voted the 11th best guard in the sport. At this point, I think it's funny. Fans ranked her 2nd, media ranked her 3rd, WNBA players voted her as the 11th best guard. Indiana's scoring 94 a game. It's the highest in 16 years. She's the #1 shooter, distributor, play initiator, playmaker. She's 11th. She's 4th in the league in scoring, 2nd in assists, and she's the 11th best guard. I mean, the animosity toward Caitlin Clark.
It's so petty, honestly, that vote wasn't a stat. It was an opinion, and it was demonstrably wrong the moment it was published. Players like Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young, who are legitimate stars in their own right, landed right behind her in that same vote. And even they, if you caught them off guard, if you asked them off the record, would probably admit that the gap between 11th and where Clark actually belonged was never even close to accurate. This wasn't just a misjudgment. It was a public declaration of how many in the league perceived her, and it laid the groundwork for the most epic on-court clapback we've seen in years.
Caitlin Clark voted 11th best guard by WNBA players. That's crazy. I think people need to look at themselves in the mirror and realize, like, man, you got some insecurities if you sitting down and putting Caitlin Clark as the 11th best guard. Y'all need to go to a therapist and figure out what childhood issues you have. Because if you're sitting there and looking at yourself in the mirror and putting her as 11th best guard, and you're putting you as 8th best, like, come on.
But here's where it gets absolutely wild. That kind of disrespect, it doesn't stay buried forever. Just 2 weeks after that vote went public, Clark walked into a game against Seattle and didn't just play well. She dropped an earth-shattering 45 points with 10 assists. She didn't just have a good stat line. She became the first player in WNBA history to post a 40-point, 10-assist game in a single night. This wasn't a good game. This was a historic one, a first-ever, never-been-done-before line that the entire league and every single one of those voters had to sit with. So while 11 players were being ranked ahead of her at her own position, Clark was quietly setting records that none of those 11 players have ever come close to touching. It's almost poetic timing, honestly. Voters cast their ballots, and within days, Clark answered with the loudest, most undeniable response available to her. A historic box score that nobody could spin, nobody could explain away, and absolutely nobody could argue with.
5 and 10. Can I interest you in that? From now on, Caitlin Clark, that's how you shoot. That's how you motherfucking shoot. 11 for 18, 6 of 10 for 3, clutch 3 after clutch 3. After everybody been on her fucking back, she came back and showed y'all she's the motherfucking one. Excuse my language, but I gotta say it because she ain't gonna say it, so I'll say it for her. Balled out tonight. Even when people out there shooting shots when they should have been shooting the ball in the fourth quarter, she had 16 points and she was hot. Led the combat, down 6 in the fourth. Play after play, 16 points, 3 assists. She made every big play. This is what I'm talking about. When all the haters and doubters are talking about you and they coming at you game after game and you on a minute restriction and you score all those points in 29.
And that 45-point, 10-assist masterclass, that is exactly the pattern that has followed her all season long. Everybody underrates her, everybody questions her, and then she goes out and makes that underrating look foolish within a matter of games. It happened with the preseason rankings, it happened with that infamous guard vote, and now it is happening with the MVP race itself. We're talking about a conversation that completely excluded her a few months ago. A conversation that almost seemed to deliberately ignore her existence, now has her name sitting right at the very top, undeniable and unavoidable.
Leah Boston says Kelsey Mitchell is the MVP. A lot of people say it's A'ja Wilson. But Caitlin Clark is making this conversation very interesting. Why? Look at the numbers. Over her last 10 games, 24.7 points a game, 9 assists, and she's shooting 47% from the field and 41% from 3. That is an MVP level stretch. A'ja Wilson still has an incredible case. I mean, she's A'ja. And Kelsey Mitchell absolutely belongs in the conversation, but Caitlin Clark is making a late push that is getting pretty hard to ignore.
Now here's where it gets truly uncomfortable for A'ja Wilson. Clark is not just showing up in the MVP conversation anymore, she is leading it. She's currently out in front of every other candidate in points generated per game, total points scored, and total assists. She's ahead of her own teammate, Olivia Miles, who sits in a respectable second place, just 34 points behind her. She's ahead of Kelsey Mitchell, a prolific scorer. And yes, she is ahead of A'ja Wilson. This isn't a fluke. This is a consistent, season-long trend that has completely upended what everyone assumed was a locked-in race for the league's most valuable player.
At some point, the talent is just undeniable. Y'all, some of y'all that are not giving it up for Caitlin Clark, I just simply don't understand I don't know what you're watching. I heard Candace Parker and Aaliyah Boston giving their list for MVP candidates, and I did not hear Caitlin Clark's name. I did not hear Caitlin Clark's name. What is that about? WNBA Elite Offensive Impact, league rankings across key offensive metrics. Look at this, look at that first column. And you're telling me this is not an MVP candidate? Huh? Points per game, Caitlin Clark, 3rd. Look at the rest of the column. Oh my goodness. Assists per game, first. Points created, first. Points per game created. How? If you want to say Asia Wilson is the MVP, I know Asia Wilson's very dominant. Olivia Miles having an outstanding. Wow. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell is a hooper. But for you not to even put Caitlin Clark on the list of MVP candidates, come on now, let's not do it.
Let that sink in for a second, because it gets even wilder when you factor in one crucial detail that nobody is talking about enough. Clark has played roughly a game and a half fewer than the players she is currently beating in these critical offensive categories. She is doing more in less time than everyone chasing the same trophy. This isn't just about raw numbers. It's about efficiency, impact, and an undeniable ability to affect winning in a way that truly sets her apart from the rest of the field, making her statistical dominance even more profound.
Really breaking her own records now? Caitlin Clark is without a doubt having her best season as a pro, and she's on pace to make even more history. But you just gotta hear some of these crazy numbers. Let's start with the one that just makes no sense. There have been 120 20-point 10-assist games in WNBA history, right? CC has 19 of them in less than 3 seasons. She even has more than every other franchise except her own, of course. She has 9 20-point 10-assist games this season alone, the most by any player. Whose record did she beat? Her own from 2024. She became the fastest player in history to reach a combined 1,500 total career points and 500 assists. Caitlin's the only player in history to average at least 20 and 8 in a single month, and she's done it 5 times already. And she's on track to be the first to average 20 and 8 in a single season. Oh, and the Fever have been winning. They're now first in the East and 4th overall. They've won 7 of their last 9 games, winning by an average of 14 points per game. In the first game of that streak, CC had the game of her life. 45 points, 10 dimes, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. First in W history with 40 and 10 in a game. Put it this way, only 4 NBA players have notched a stat line like that in a single game. She's 3rd in scoring, she's tied for 1st in assists. So will CC catch Asia Wilson for MVP frontrunner and help the Fever?
Think about what that actually means for a moment. It is one thing to lead a stat category when you have played every single game and logged every single minute available to you, maximizing your opportunities. It is a completely different thing to lead it while missing time, while other players are getting extra games and additional minutes to pad their totals and still coming out ahead anyway. That is not luck. That is not a hot stretch. That is a player operating on a different level than everyone else circled around her, doing more damage in fewer minutes than her closest competitors can manage with a full workload. And it does not stop at the box score. Clark now ranks 4th all-time among more than 850 guards in career points with 690 total, a number most players spend a full decade chasing, and she is doing it years into her career, not decades. On top of that, she leads the league and makes from behind the arc, the exact shot that defines modern offense, the shot every team builds its spacing around. And this season alone, she hit a career-high 32 mid-range shots, which is more than her first 2 seasons combined. That is not a small jump. That is a player expanding her entire game in real time, adding a shot that was not even part of her arsenal before, and mastering it well enough to blow past her previous 2 years put together in a matter of months. Think about what it actually takes to add a shot like that mid-career, to completely redefine your offensive threat profile against the best defenders in the world.
MVP is on the way, and y'all stay hating on the biggest. Matter of fact, we don't even say the biggest no more. We just say don't nothing get no bigger. Man, look, Caitlin Clark ranks top 3 in points per game and assists per game. Hear me out. This season, and is on pace to be the first player in WNBA history. In WNBA history, the first person, that means she's the first to do it, to average 20 points per game and 8 assists per game in a season. Mind y'all, she's top 3 in 2 of the top 3 categories, points, rebounds, assists. She's top 3 in 2 of them. I don't think nobody else is outside of one person who is probably the front runner for MVP.
Most players spend an entire offseason retooling their footwork, drilling the same pull-up jumper thousands of times in an empty gym, hoping it translates once the lights come on and a defender is closing out at full speed. Clark did that work. She integrated it, and now defenses cannot simply sag off her and dare her to shoot from mid-range anymore, because she has proven time and again that she will make them pay for it. ESPN has also flagged something that deserves its own spotlight, a truly mind-blowing statistic. Clark generated over 40 points created in a single game earlier this season, the most by any player in WNBA history. Not just this season's history, but league history. That number accounts for the points she scored plus the points she directly set up for teammates, and it is the kind of stat that measures true offensive gravity, not just individual scoring. It tells you she is not padding a stat sheet by simply chucking shots. She is running an entire offense through her hands and making every single possession more dangerous because she touched the ball.
Shit for a second. A'ja Wilson is definitively the best player in the WNBA. She's just absolutely deadly as a mid-range jump shooter. She's like clockwork, like 45, 46%. And then she can drive closeouts from that position about as well as anybody in the league. As you saw the play that iced the game, just a simple rip through to the left, extend out, draw the contact, and finish off the glass. She's one of the best athletes in the league, one of the best mid-range shooters.
That kind of number does not happen by accident. Either it happens when a point guard sees the floor a full step ahead of everyone else on it, when she is already calculating the next 2 passes before the ball even reaches her hands. Watch the tape back, and you will notice defenders biting on pump fakes that are not even real pump fakes, just Clark reading their weight distribution and making a decision half a second before they do. On top of all of that, Clark was just named Conference Player of the Week for the 4th time this season. 4th, that is not a 1-week hot streak that media outlets are overreacting to. That is a player being recognized over and over at regular intervals across an entire year. When a player earns that honor 4 separate times, it stops being a coincidence and starts being a pattern that voters cannot keep pretending not to notice, no matter how much they might want to.
Now, when it comes to the MVP race, it's really only out of 2 candidates, and that's Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. And when you really sit back and look, the reason I say this is because A'ja Wilson is doing what she's doing, but Caitlin Clark is doing something we've never seen before, which she always does. But we've never seen a guard average over 20 while averaging over 8 assists. Over 20 points and over 8 assists. We've never seen it. And we also are a top 5 team, so you can't say anything about the record. And the players that y'all have above her, not on her level. So we can say Caitlin averages more points than Paige, averages like way more assists than Paige, and has the same or better record. So that automatically counts as.
So now flip back to A'ja Wilson, because this is where the frustration has to be setting in for the reigning MVP. Wilson has spent this entire year with a version of the same defiant message on repeat, telling anyone who will listen that she has been the greatest since 1996. The year she was born, and that nobody is taking her spot. And honestly, she has earned the right to say things like that. 4 MVPs, 3 championships, that is a resume most players in this league will never sniff, a legacy already cemented. She's a legend, and her place in the pantheon of WNBA greats is secure.
I don't know if it's because A'ja just been great for so long that, you know, what she doing has just been casually overlooked, but A'ja Wilson is literally in her LeBron era. And what do I mean by she in her LeBron era? Like, A'ja Wilson is at the point to where she damn near could win MVP every single year for the next 4 to 5 years if she wanted to, or if they gonna give it to her at this point. Now, the only difference between her and LeBron is not only is she winning MVP, but she also good enough to actually win the defensive MVP. Like, think about how dominant she actually is on both sides of the court. Like, the fact that they rely on her to be the number 1 option on offense, and then at the same time, she's the main force and the anchor of the defense as well, too. She damn near the GOAT, because not only did she just pass 600 blocks in her career, and she's the 6th player in WNBA history to reach that milestone, at the same.
But here's the kicker. Resumes are built in the past tense. MVP races are decided in the present tense, based on what you are doing right now, today, this season. And right now, in the present tense, Caitlin Clark is outproducing her. This isn't about past glory, it's about current, undeniable impact, and the numbers are telling a story that clashes directly with the established narrative of who the best player in the league truly is.
As of yesterday, she was the fastest player to reach 700 assists in WNBA history. Not just in WNBA history, but also NBA history as well. It took LaMelo Ball 104 games to reach 700 assists, and it took LeBron James 159 games to reach 700 assists. Caitlin Clark did it faster than the both of them. Caitlin Clark is also first in the WNBA in total points created. She is first in the WNBA in points per game created. She is first in points per minute when she is on the court. Leads the league in assists per game, and she is also third overall in scoring this season. The stat that really stands out to me is the points generated per game. It's the amount of points that she is either scoring or assisting on, and that's really where Caitlin Clark is at her best. We've also seen that with the Indiana Fever. They've definitely turned a corner around midway through this season. They're finding their groove, and Caitlin Clark is a big reason for that.
The Caitlin Clark story is undoubtedly cool, a compelling narrative of a young star rising. But how exactly is that supposed to sit with someone who has been the undisputed standard for half a decade? Wilson is still ranked at the top of preseason lists, still treated by a lot of voters as the automatic frontrunner, the default choice for MVP. And yet, the actual on-court numbers say something completely different. Wilson still leads in scoring average and blocks, which absolutely matters, and nobody is taking that away from her impressive season. But Clark is doing more with less. Fewer games, more points created, more assists, more record-setting nights, and she is doing it while carrying a fledgling offense that now leads the entire league in scoring. A team she basically built from the ground up over 3 seasons. That stark contrast, that undeniable statistical advantage in the face of fewer opportunities, is exactly why this MVP conversation flipped overnight.
She has to finish top 3 in scoring and number 1 in assists per game. She has to finish with those 2 things because no player in WNBA history has ever finished top 3 in scoring and led the league in assists per game. She would be the first to do so, and I honestly think she has a good chance of doing this with 9 games left. She's gonna have to keep that up. So she's gonna be looking for somewhere in that vicinity of 25 to 30 points per game is what I think she needs to maintain. And look, I think she's going to get there. I think she's easily 20 to 20.
It is not that Wilson suddenly got worse. Let's be crystal clear on that. Her game is still elite, still dominant. It is that Clark got so undeniably good so fast that voters and analysts alike had no choice but to reconsider everything they assumed about this race back in June. And once voters start reconsidering their initial assessments, especially with a player who keeps setting records, the conversation rarely swings back the other way. The momentum is too strong, the evidence too overwhelming, and the narrative has already shifted in a way that is incredibly difficult to reverse, especially when the player forcing that reconsideration keeps adding record after record to back it up. And this is the part that has to sting the most for players who spent the early part of this season ranking Clark 11th at her own position.